Let me. Hi everyone. So yeah, we'll start with Damien explaining the use case and a possible feature requests for CloudNativePG. Thanks, Damien. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, just wanted to share our use case. So we are building a SaaS application where we have a multi-tenancy approach. So we have one tenant per client, and meaning that we have a lot of PG instances, dedicated instances. For you to know, like we are going to deploy more than 300 instances on one Kubernetes cluster. So one operator will manage more than 300 clusters, PG clusters. And we started investigating a bit the various options and decided to go with CNPG. And starting by hoping to get one primary, one standby for us, and not two standbys to try to reduce the cost, because you can see that at scale, 600, we have more than 700 PG clusters, like two instances, like one replica versus two replica is a significant cost for us difference. So we were using the operator so far with the synchronous replication, with the self-healing feature, and that was working for us. We knew that it was not fully maybe optimal, but it was still working for us. But recently we discovered that that synchronous replication config was going to be deprecated, while we were expecting to have a bit more the opposite, trying to get more features from the CNPG operator to try to match a bit what others are doing. We were comparing like Amazon RDS, for example. It's providing like the multi-AZ with only one standby. If you look at other also operators like Zalando or Crunchy Data, they are leveraging Patroni, which is providing also support for only one standby. Because for use case, yeah, the availability, we favor the availability over the durability. So yeah, we wanted to see if there's a on the roadmap the plan to continue supporting maybe synchronous replication with some point one standby, and potentially also more self-healing features that you add, maybe improve them. For example, having a way to detect if the replication lag is over a specific threshold to disable the synchronous replication, to not impact the primary. So we are more in that way, like really favoring the primary. We already have the wall archiving in place, so we can consider that we are already safe on that side, and the replica is more like a failover for us. So yeah, wanted to get a bit of your point of view on what could be a feature request if you want to support that use case on the long term, and also if we can still continue using the deprecated feature for some time.
Well, I can tell you that, I mean, first of all, we just do provide an interface for Postgres. Okay, so we cannot change the way Postgres implements synchronous replication. So for example, we cannot disable that, in my opinion, from what I can see, if there's a lag, because by definition, if synchronous is on, there's no lag on at least, you know, right on disk. So I don't know if you mean lag on the replay side, which is something else, you know, but
it's more like if for example, we faced an issue at some point where the standby, the disk was full, but it was up, and then everything was stuck because the primary was waiting indefinitely.
yeah.
The operator was saying, yeah, the instance is maybe LT, it's up and running, but it cannot accept and commit the data. So for us, it's a bit annoying because Yeah, would like just
yeah.
to drop in that case. Like I know that in the there's a metric like for the replication delay. I guess
Yeah,
that
the delay lag, I think we were looking at.
can find back, but
No,
yeah.
but I don't think, I don't think we can do much with that because that's essentially how Postgres works. Also, you have to imagine that synchronous commit is a parameter that can be changed at transaction level. Okay, so there's, in that with that regards, I think we cannot do much except replicating the same mechanism we had here, where we were pushing down ready replicas, were pushing down max sync replicas and min sync replicas. I have to admit that I don't know how we came with this design, that it was every time we were looking at these. After a while, we didn't understand why we had placed two parameters there, like min sync replicas, max sync replicas. We couldn't understand why we had implemented that. And at that time, we decided to push down. So ready if there were no replicas, we would disable synchronous replication because that was, prioritizing self-healing. But we knew from a DBA perspective, that's like heresy, for a DBA, for a Postgres DBA to, if you want synchronous replication, that's exactly what they don't want. They don't want you to be. They want the database to stop accepting writes. Okay. So with the new system, we came with the idea that we had to enable a way to fully exploit Postgres capabilities in terms of synchronous standby names composition. Okay, we were not enabling the priority-based synchronous replication method. And in some cases, especially for those that have on-premise deployments with only 2 data centers, and they are forced to have two Kubernetes clusters or 2 OpenShift clusters because they cannot use multiple availability zones. They need a way to ensure that, for example, the designated primary in the other cluster participates in the quorum or in the synchronous replication priority based list. Okay, so that's why we had to do it. And we said, okay, we should enforce the Postgres way of doing things. And because there was very little time for us to push this feature, but we thought it was important to add it, we probably, speeded it up, and we just approved it as it was because it was doing its job. But we knew that we wanted to provide a way for prioritizing self-healing of data durability if needed. So in a certain way, specify that this is kind of preferred instead of required, which is, I think, what you guys need. So if we put kind of an option here that says that this is not required, but preferred, it means that if there are no ready replicas, the synchronous replication is not enforced. So self-healing is prioritized. So we can, by default, we adopt the Postgres way of, doing synchronous replication, but we also give you the possibility to stop it under certain conditions. Okay, because The good thing that would allow you to probably use one replica only, because in that case, if there's a failover, in most of the cases, the vast majority, you'll have zero data loss. Okay, there's less risk of losing data that way in case of failover. Let's put it that way. You know, the way Postgres works, you could have a transaction that is committed in the standby, but the application hasn't received the commit confirmation. Okay, that's a corner case, but that's how Postgres works. So it's a known Postgres problem, you know. So, but I think that could solve. I think. What do you think? Thomas, you.
So yeah, I was thinking we go this way, and then we have a way of enabling the self-healing capabilities. Would it make sense to extend what is a healthy instance, not only to check if it can accept connections, but also if the other processes are healthy, like the word receiver in this case? Because we're seeing in the case that Damian was talking about, the replica was accepting connections, but the word receiver was breaking because it couldn't write to disk and commit data. And the whole cluster was considered healthy, but it was not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would that make sense? Somehow.
I think we improve recently, and we checked that the word receiver is up. I think, where did we enforce that? Do you remember?
Yeah, I saw maybe a commit recently around that. Not sure if it's
Okay,
on
maybe
that,
missed it.
but indeed, so for us, having a way to, as you explained, to not have a strict synchronous replication all the time, but a preferred option.
Yeah.
That's a bit what Patroni is doing as well. If you look at Patroni, it's by default, if you enable synchronous replication, by default, it will fall back to disable it if the replica is not there. But do you still have a way,
So,
I guess, for
I
them?
think they introduced this recently.
Maybe they introduce a strict mode, like you can say strict
Okay.
mode, so it's a bit more the opposite that you explained, but similar. It's a strict mode, and in that case, it will not disable synchronous replication if the standby is not there. But yeah, having that similar feature, can show the link to the doc, looks really what we are looking for. And then as Thomas mentioned, yeah, disabling it is a great way, but we need to be sure that it's disabled in most of the cases. Because when we had the issue, we realized that it was just checking if the instance was accepting connection, which is not always good. Like the replica can be up, but maybe it's not in sync with also the primary. It's maybe restoring a backup from S3. Do you consider it as available? In that case, yeah, you might want to disable synchronous replication in that case. So that's why I would like maybe, so I see it like maybe the replication lag is a way also to cover more use cases. Because if there is a replication lag because the instance is not up to date, cannot accept commits anymore, you know it's not in good shape. So maybe relying on the replication lag and a threshold can solve by default more cases without have to deal with them. But yeah, it could be a feature, but yeah, a bit different from probably Postgres typical usage. But for us, it will be useful. Like if we know that the standby cannot commit a transaction after, I don't know, 60 seconds, yeah, let's just disable it.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, now I get it. Yep. Okay, now I understand. So let me check. So yeah, let me go through the chat. So by the way, yeah, it's deprecated, but it's still there, the feature. Okay. So when we had no intention to remove it whatsoever. Okay, until we have the same option. Okay. So it was purely, we introduced it so that you know, because we were delaying 124 release.
Mhm.
Okay, the release candidate, we had problems with the release candidate process. That it was the first time we did a release candidate, essentially.
Mhm.
So we just decided, okay, let's just, sneak this feature into 124. I mean, it's done. I mean, and we decided to put it that way. Otherwise, it would be in 125. There would have been more discussions probably, but I think it's probably better that we released it in 124, in my opinion. So at least we have the possibility to even try it with as I said, replica clusters and so on. Even though with the distributed topology feature that we have, if you don't have the wall archive, the replica cluster could fall out of sync. We don't have at the moment support for replication slots from the replica cluster. So, but at least we could have also conversations with prospects. This is also what is happening, so that and you guys know that being customers of EDB, we also have the possibility to work on a particular feature because a customer requested. That's normal. Okay, that's how with open source it works. So in this particular case, there was a customer that needed this feature, and that's why we had already started to work on that. Okay, and with the other maintainers, we decided it was better to introduce it in 124 like it was. Okay, but we were not removing any feature whatsoever. So to reply to Jeremy, there's we already update synchronous standby. Okay, so if you take this is the default. This is basically simulating the quorum replication. Okay, so here we ask we request at least one standby to be synchronous, and the operator already sets synchronous standby names based on the values of the active pods, okay, and the replicas. So it's already happening, and you can see it more clearly here when we build these other quorum, or even let me get this is probably better. Okay, the priority based, you get first, so we want the first two, and we get one maximum standby from the actual cluster, which is this. Okay, and then we want one pre and one post, and this is how we build the synchronous standby names. So the central part is what the operator automatically manages for us. Okay, this was explained somewhere. I don't know if it's clear. Jeremy, did
I think I'm catching up and tracking now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially, at the moment, the one that makes sense when we work with replica clusters is only the priority based. Okay, so the first, so that you have the chance to put, for example, first I want the other one on the other data center to be in sync. And then I want another one as fallback in case I have a problem with the other data center. We have a large customer in Canada, for example, that says, if I don't write to the other data center in the same city, which is opposite, I don't want any transaction to be written. Okay, and then they know that they have to manually move to another region if there are problems, but that's their requirement in terms of data durability. Okay. That's not your use case. I think your use case is purely this one with preferred instead of enforced
Yes,
or
indeed.
required.
That does raise a good question, though. It seems like maybe so replica clusters have been something that we've been improving support for recently.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong. It seems like the replica cluster stuff was part of what was driving the
Yes.
changes around
Yeah.
how the slots were managed. Yeah. So how would you do that with a replica cluster? Like it's because within a cluster, it's a little bit easier. You know, healthy pods, unhealthy pods. You have health checks. So I mean, to the question, Damien, to your question, like it's one thing to build it within a single cluster where we have, Kubernetes kind of has some knowledge of the topology, the health. But is that something that can work across replica clusters, or is that it just would never work at all? I don't know if you could, because you don't really know. We don't have as much information about the health of the other side.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, this should only be enforced or should be responsible of the instances in the cluster. And probably because we don't know about the others. Yeah, that's true. But I think hang on, Postgres already discards a standby from synchronous replication if the word receiver is down. But still, it goes, it follows the list, it follows the other standby names. So I think at the end, if there are none available, the risk is that it disables. If there are none available locally, but there's the remote cluster available, it might disable synchronous replication. I think that's the use case. So if locally you have three instances, and the two instances are down, but the other one is up, it could potentially continue to work, but we end up disabling it because we don't know if the other one is up or not. Or we might look at the PG wall sender. If it's up, we consider that as well. I think that could work. So if in order to evaluate availability of the standbys, for the remote ones, we look at PG site replication. And we see that the other one is streaming, we assume that it's up, so we don't disable it. I think it could work. So it could work in both cases, I think.
Yeah, and the follow-up question to that would be if you can do it based on PG stat replication, why can't Postgres just do that itself based on based on the slot?
Yeah.
And that would be an upstream conversation. That's what I was posting in the chat a moment ago. Like maybe you could, right now Postgres has a syntax of any and first that you can put in there.
Yeah.
What if you added a syntax of any with fallback to async, where it tells Postgres just do it yourself instead of, because then Petroni would pick that up too. Everybody would just let Postgres handle it. It'd be done one way.
Yeah, that could be an idea. I mean,
I don't know.
yeah, if we push it down to Postgres, of course that will not solve the problem of Postgres.
How does Petroni decide?
Versions.
How does Petroni decide when to switch?
I don't know. I haven't.
Damien, do you know?
No, I don't know. I just saw the doc, but I guess Patron is more on top of it. Like it can know like the state of everything, and probably decide to reconfigure, but I don't know, I never played with it. But
Okay.
yeah, but I know that yeah, they can disable it if they see that one standby is not up and running, they will disable it. Except if you, as I mentioned in the chat, if you have the synchronous mode strict enabled, the feature on their side, then they will not disable it. But by default, they disable it. But yeah, on my
Yeah,
side, I
but-
gave yeah.
Patroni, I don't know if Patroni has the concept of replica cluster. So, I mean, that's something that, yeah, because I think Patroni, the cluster in Patroni is what also is probably similar to the concept of cluster in CMPG.
Yes, it's probably yes, PG cluster, yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine it's similar to our rep manager, so you have an agent with the other nodes and it communicates with the server, you know, or to determine consensus and all of that. But yeah, I think we could think about that. So I think what we should do is I will create a ticket if that's okay, and then we can continue the discussion there, and before we actually develop that.
Yes, and probably for us the high level requirement so is more like to have support for one primary, one standby, as other solutions are doing, like RDS as I mentioned, or other operators as well. Because yeah, imposing two replicas could have an impact for also the project. So yeah, that's a bit what we are looking for.
Yeah.
By the way, RDS, just to clarify something, RDS has two different kinds of replication that it can do. One of them is called multi-AZ. That's the one you're talking about, but that does storage level replication. That's not doing wall-based replication. RDS also has another one called multi-AZ clusters, which uses wall-based replication similar to Patroni. That requires two replicas, is how they built that. So just as a note.
Sorry, Leonardo, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand better the scenario here. And I was thinking, would a replica with being out of this space be ready or not? In our case, it would be for CMPG. It is still accepting transactions.
Yeah, that's why I was mentioning it would make sense to not consider it healthy in this case.
But we need to devise a better criteria, I guess, because this is not, but I mean, it's easy to talk about, but every time I try to devise a,
We rely on PG is ready.
yeah, we do that. But if you're out of this space for wall files, suppose Postgres will shut down and the pod will not be declared ready anymore, because in this moment it is declared ready only when that replica has attached via streaming replication to its primary at least one time at the beginning. So if you're out of this space for walls, you are going to have a replica which is not ready. But if you're out of this space for your PG data, or if everything is hosted inside the same volume, that replica will still be ready.
That's our use case.
So what are you using? Are you thinking of using a separate wall storage or just everything inside the same volume?
But now we use one volume for both.
Okay, one volume for both.
And I guess the other scenario, it was maybe not this full, but the other scenario was more the standby was not able to catch the latest S3 files to be up to date with primary. So it was up and running, but not able to fetch the files, the backup files on S3.
Yeah.
Because they were missing. We were doing some development and it was removed. But it was accepting connection, but it was not up to date with primary. And then yeah, we had
Yeah,
that
because
situation.
that's Postgres. I mean, Postgres basically. So now I get what you mean, Thomas. But in the case, it shouldn't be streaming. If there's a missing wall, it means that the wall restore failed, so it's not able to stream from the primary. So it's actually looking for wall files from the archive. Okay, so it shouldn't be attached as a wall receiver, and so it shouldn't be part of the synchronous. It should be out already. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what
with your
happened.
feature, it would work, but you have no standby, but that's a different thing, you know. In that case, it's lagging. You see that there's a problem because the standby is not connected via streaming, and the second, that is lagging too much.
Yeah, so to me, like having a way to stop synchronous if the replication lag is over a threshold would be probably a quick win for us. Like if we know that we don't get an answer from the standby after 30 seconds, let's not impact the primary. We don't want to be impacted by a node which is not behaving and accepting the transaction. So it's more an extra feature for us, which can maybe prevent other use cases. If the disk is full, it will not reply after 30 seconds. If something else is happening, like a threshold for us, and it's at the discretion of any application to define the correct threshold. Could be 1 hour, 30 seconds, I don't know, something you define in seconds, and you have a bit of flexibility there.
I think that if we use the same mechanism, I mean, if we just look at if there's a wall sender for that pod, that should be enough to qualify for a healthy replica to participate in the synchronous replication quorum or priority based type. Leonardo, what do you think?
I'm still thinking. I may be totally wrong and out of scope, but I think my feeling is that we are trying to address this in the wrong layer. It sounds like something that Postgres should have enough info to do. Meanwhile, we require cooperation and, let's say, global status. And I think Patroni is doing the same, because it's pushing down the latest LSN inside HT or the DCS to get information. I don't know. That's just a feeling. Sorry, nothing. I'm not able to devise a clear fix to this. I need to.
Oh yeah, because right now we changed it based on events that are triggered by the readiness probe.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Something like I would imagine a Postgres configuration enabling me to do that. Say I should wait. I cannot wait more than these 30 seconds. After a while, I just detach. I don't know, but just thinking, sorry.
No, otherwise, what we can do is we enable if we only use clusters. I mean, the asynchronous standby names, we only use instance names of that cluster, we are eligible for disabling the feature. But if you have pre-standby, pre-sync or post-sync, they must be mutually exclusive with the possibility to disable.
But I don't think if somebody has pre-sync or post-sync, and if they're doing any kind of sync replication with remote clusters, I'm not sure that you need this anymore, because at that point, when you lose your local pod, it's just going to sync remotely and it'll probably still work.
Yeah.
So probably I think keeping the old syntax around might actually give Damien what he needs until kind of we can figure this out.
No, I think we were saying the same thing, Jeremy. Probably didn't explain myself properly, but I think we can only allow preferred if there are no first or post sync standby names. Otherwise, if it's required. So if you have first or I'm sorry, pre or post sync standby names.
Yeah.
At least one of them, it must be required. I think they could work.
Yes. It sounds fine to me, actually.
So
And-
that means if you are using if you want replication within the cluster, that's exactly essentially. So what I called in the article internal replication, internal synchronous replication. So
Anyway, the old syntax is there, and no one is going to remove it unless we have
yeah,
can achieve
yes.
exactly the same behavior with another syntax.
Yes.
So
Okay,
It-
that's great to hear, and we'll continue to use it. Like maybe to have the confirmation that we are safe to use only one standby with the current feature, because we discuss edge cases where apparently it's the self-healing is maybe not covering these cases. Do you know a bit more, or can you maybe?
well, that actually depends on the scenario you have. That feature is based on the readiness of pods. If this is enough for you, then okay, it's great. Otherwise, you need a different definition of readiness, and that's another topic. Okay, we are, I mean, more than happy to receive suggestions. If we find another criteria which everyone likes, why not? But unfortunately, it's not an easy question.
Think about these, okay? If maybe you had a node that was down for 2 hours, okay? So you resume the node, the replica restarts, and it fetches walls from the wall archive. That could take 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay. If we put the condition in the readiness probe that for the instance to be ready, we need that to be attached via streaming to the primary, the pod might be shut down every X minutes because it's not ready, so the Kubernetes will keep restarting it. Okay, that's not what we want, so that would require us maybe to introduce more timeouts in case it's a replica in terms of startup. We could think about that. I mean, I think that if we want to go down the path that a replica is not considered ready if it's not streaming, I think we need to account for some startup time that is different from the one on the primary, which is now the case, So it could be 1 hour, let's say, to bye, Jeremy. Okay, Jeremy left.
That there is also the relative speed that we should consider. I've seen. I remember me working with a customer that was having a standby, which was hosted in a node that was lower than the primary. And what happened is that they get a connection dropped. It's not such a big problem. So the standby was file-based, but the primary was so fast in creating walls that the standby was always file-based. So in that case, everything is fine depending by which definition of fine. I mean, was that standby ready or not? This is why I really can't imagine a readiness definition that works for everyone.
Yeah, so that's why maybe the replication lag is a way to know, is a note to know if it's acceptable for someone to wait for such amount of time to be replicated. And then you decide, like if it's above a threshold, you say it's not acceptable for me to have that one part of the cluster, and you remove it. At some point, yeah, if you don't have anyone, yeah, if you only have the primary alone, then you work with the primary, and then when they come back and they can help. But yeah.
Would you need to have a failover? Would the standby be still considerable as a new primary or not?
Sorry, if what?
If you need to do a failover and you have a standby which is far behind, what happens? Do you promote it or do you leave it as it is?
Yes, that's also my question. I don't know what's the current behavior for now, like for the promotion. Do you check if it's up to date when you promote a standby?
So if you have synchronous replication, it's gonna be aligned. And we are going to promote the one that is aligned. That's what we
Yes,
don't.
yeah. But then if that one fails again, and the other one is not aligned, what do you do?
I think backups are the only choice.
Yeah, but do you promote the other one, like the third one? Like if you have 3 instances, one primary, one standby, and the second standby. Let's take the primary is going down. The first standby, which is in sync, is promoted. The other one is lacking, is a bit behind. The first standby is going down. What do you do? The third one, if it's not up to date, do you promote it or not?
We promote it.
Yeah. So you can still have that case for now. I guess Patroni is doing something, I don't know, they mentioned that they only promote if it's up to date with the latest, so they have a way to track if a standby is up to date with the primary, the former primary. But I don't know if there's a way for you also to track that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Because they continuously push the current LSN SD. That opens another set of problems.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying it's easy, but yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
complex. But yeah, and
it's
I don't know all the implications. So yeah, with raising IDs or stuff. But I know that yeah, it
It's
could be
just
pretty
compromise.
complex. But yeah, we'll have
No,
to
but normally what happens is that if you have, let's say 3 nodes, okay, that are pretty much the same resources and computational resources, and you even specify only one to be synchronous, the other one is synchronous too. Okay, so it's very rare that the third one is lagging unless something extraordinary happened. So that's why, I mean, this is also our requirements at second quadrant, and we developed synchronous replication, you know, with the Simon Riggs. That was our recommendation to have three standbys. It might change with planning with, for example, EDB to do something in that space, to have you know, support for, like we have with Barman for streaming replication of world files, so they can have RPO0 with backups. And that way you can rely on the backup as a potential, you know, let's say as a fallback. Okay. But otherwise, you know, at the moment we believe that 3 is the right number of instances for this reason. I mean, for the reasons you just said, you know. But I think these are very rare cases. And no matter, I mean, they're important, but you know, you know, you have to compromise. Okay, so if you're if you need to reduce costs, and you accept that, you know, with one synchronous standby, you could have those other cases, you know.
Yeah, for sure. That's a bit our use case, so we are ready to accept that risk.
Sorry, I have to drop. I can leave the bridge open if you need, but I have to drop.
I also need to drop. So
Maybe so next step, so you are going to open a kind of
Yeah,
ticket
I'll
or
open an issue and
then we can continue there. Cool. That's
okay.
great. Yeah.
But as I said, I can leave it open, but I can assign somebody else as organizer.
no, I'm dropping. So
Yeah.
see you everyone.
Close it here.
Thank you, everyone, for
Okay.
the time.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.